Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
He's alive!
Welcome to Where the Weird Ones Are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that. And if you didn't, now you do. And my sister is here because she
Everybody say hi to the baby. Hi, I'm Tanya.
That
was my baby.
That was a beer gut.
No, okay.
That's all beer.
No, look at that. Look at that baby. Oh my God. She's kicking me in the bladder. She discovered my bladder like yesterday and she's obsessed with it.
Oh man, that sucks, bro.
For me, it does.
Yeah. All right. So today on the podcast, we had Mrs. Spooky Obsessed. I follow her on Instagram and I also listen to her podcast. She talks about history with spooky things. Right now she's her latest episode is the history on Halloween, and I think she's planning on doing a couple episodes on the history of Halloween because she kind of like it's more like a specific part on each episode. So but she has some interesting experiences and we talk about some of our own as well with her, possibly some that we haven't talked about on this podcast yet, so that'll be interesting. Also look out for Conspiracy Tuesday Part 2 because Vicky might be a part of that and it will be fun, I think. So anyways, Tanya, what did you think about today's podcast?
I thought it was interesting. It was kind of different from like other podcasts that like, I don't know. We talked about paranormal, but it wasn't like, I don't know.
It was more of a conversation.
Yeah. It was the focus, but it wasn't the focus, the paranormal part.
Right. She has experienced a few things, UFO maybe. So that was a cool story. Anyways, so real quick, I want to give a shout out to a couple podcasts that I currently listen to. First is Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky. I think you guys should check him out. He's gonna be coming on our show to talk about some of his experiences tomorrow. Also Mrs. Spooky Obsessed. So you can find her, I believe she said iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify. Those are the places you can find her podcast, and she's currently working on Apple. Third is The Conversation Cabin. I think she's a phenomenal storyteller. And last but not least, I will say three siblings walk into a bar. They talk about true crime. They tell each other stories. It's three siblings, two sisters and a brother. It's an interesting dynamic, and I enjoy listening to it. With that being said, Tanya, do you listen to any podcasts as of right now?
I listened to a bunch of podcasts, but I haven't listened to any in a while. None of them are really like paranormal. They're all true crime because, I'm a white girl, so
Hmm.
I listen to the true crimes.
Interesting. True crime. A lot of those fucking disturb me and like irritate me, and I get really angry sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of them
I
do.
just heard one about this guy was a cop in Florida, and he murdered a woman and almost got away with it, essentially. So
Oh yeah, the ones with the cops are always the most annoying because they're
uh,
cops, so
yeah,
they're taken care of by other law enforcement.
this one he wasn't protected by other. It took a little bit longer
Oh,
because
that's good.
he was so close to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but they eventually found him out, and he tried saying that she wanted to have relations with him, and then he accidentally killed her or something like that. But he fucking, anyways. I can't remember the woman's name, so you could probably listen to it, but I can't remember. I believe it was on 48 Hours, maybe. Oh no, it was Mr. Ballin. Mr. Ballin on YouTube, and
I
or
love Mr. Ballin.
his podcast. Actually, I think it was his podcast that I think it was episode 64. He's a good storyteller, I think. So that is another one. That's another podcast that I'll listen to that you think you should check out. So he has a lot of content on TikTok and YouTube, and I think you should check it out. All right. Anyways, that's all. Also, if you guys are into cryptid merchandise, possibly cryptid plushies, please head on over to 16%.com and use my code Stay Weird. That's a capital S and a capital W. If you use that code, you can help support help support this show, and you can probably get some cool shit out of it. So please do so. Other than that, stay weird, my friends.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Weird. Get weird.
Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. Today we have Mrs. Spooky Obsessed. She has her own podcast, so I implore you to go check it out. I enjoy listening to it. I also enjoy checking out her Instagram. So how are you doing tonight, Vicky?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
I am good. Hey, guess what? My sister's here today, guys.
Hey.
Oh my God, you're so lame. So Vicky, so we talked a little bit on Instagram, and you had stated that you have had some paranormal experiences.
Yes, I have.
So I know that you're really interested in the spooky stuff and everything. So if you don't mind telling everybody that listens to this what got you hooked on to spooky stuff and got you into the path of doing your own podcast.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna say it's kind of like a childhood thing. So on a personal level with paranormal experiences, it's something I have like encountered since I was like really small, yay big, I guess, whatever term you want to use. My my family, when I was younger, like we used to live in this trailer house, and I don't know if it ever belonged to anyone else before us, but like I used to encounter a little boy who would just like come out of nowhere, like peeking out at you at the end of the hallway. Wouldn't do anything in particular harmful, but just like oddly watching you.
Mhm.
And then every night it was this scary occurrence of like I needed to have my bedroom door closed because you would hear down the hallway some footsteps, really, really heavy footsteps. And the thing with that is that these pair of boots, I guess, like they would stop at my door and just wait there, never moving. And it always like from the time I was so small, like it always felt so evil and negative that I was just like I wouldn't sleep for the rest of the night for how the evil sense, I guess, just feeling it from the other side of the door, like this sort of like figure that was like on the other side. So I would always tell my mom, and by the time I started like growing up or I got older, my mom would tell me from I think I was like 3 or 4 years old, I used to sleepwalk. And I used to go outside in the middle of the night and play by myself as if like I was actually playing with someone else, but like there was no one there. I would go to the middle of the street and start playing with somebody. So my mom had even like went to the pediatrician, like, hey, like what the hell? Like I don't know what to do with my daughter. And so like the doctor himself had even told my mom, like, hey, you know what? Like don't try to wake her up because usually kids who are sleepwalking, like if you try to wake them up, it scares them and it gets their heart to stop. So my mom would kind of like go along with it and just kind of guide me back inside the home. But because I did it so much when I was young, she ended up having to insert another like doorknob, or yeah, like a bolt way up at the high corner of the door for me not to reach so I could stop going outside.
That's funny.
So yeah. It stopped on its own a year later, according to my mom, and it never came back. Even right now in my adulthood, I'm like, shit, I better not be going outside my own.
So, on your podcast, you told the story about the footsteps in the room at your grandparents, right?
Okay, so this was it from when I was little. Yes, this was
Yes.
my home, my
Oh,
trailer.
your house, your house.
Yes, and
Eh,
then a few years later, like my family transferred to my grandparents' house. Yes.
Okay, and there was a room that you weren't supposed to go into, correct?
I'm not too sure if you spoke with that with someone else. No,
Oh,
I
okay. All right.
didn't have
All right. I
that.
must have you mixed up with somebody else then. Sorry.
That's okay.
So, on your podcast, you talk about like the history of Halloween and a lot of like spooky stories. So, what are you planning on for your next episode?
I am, for my next episode, I'm currently working on finishing the second half of the whole history of Halloween. And you had asked me earlier what's with my obsession with all that spooky related stuff, right?
Right.
So that is, I really give that whole credit to my mom because like she was a fan of everything horror. She loves everything Halloween and whatnot. And you know, me and my sisters growing up on that, I guess it just kind of like we got conditioned with that sort of love for the Halloween holiday too. That now that I'm an adult and having my own like personal experiences, like I don't know, it kind of doesn't scare me as much, I guess, when you're little and almost anything that goes bump in the night, it does scare you. But um now I'm like, I want to know more. I need to know more. Like, what's with this whole thing? And then, like, last year, I graduated with my 4-year degree in sociology. So it's about this whole thing about like society and whatnot. And I kind of put two on two together. I was like, you know what? Everyone has this whole thing on like learning society with the medical field, the education, you know, money and whatnot. But why not put in like the culture of like scary stories and monsters, like that affects our society too. Maybe not a lot of people see it, I don't know, but I do. So I did, that was my reason and purpose in creating my podcast. It was to kind of hopefully get a deeper understanding how all this has shaped our livelihood, I guess, from childhood to adulthood.
Right. I think it's pretty cool how it's transitioned into what it is today. It's kind of glorified a little bit, like the true crime stuff. People are like obsessed with all that.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of true crime, and I get upset by it, some of it. But Halloween has always been like my favorite holiday. And I don't know
Cool.
about my sister, but when when I was little, when I was 4, it was Child's Play that got me hooked. Like, I was so scared of Child's Play. I used my cousin ended up putting it on, and I would hide under this blanket, and it was like a knitted blanket, so it had these little holes all through it.
Yeah.
And so I throw it over my head, and I could still see the TV, and I was like, I can't escape it.
Yeah.
So I was curious, if you can, not a lot of people can, but I was wondering, what is your favorite horror movie?
You know what? Yeah, that got me stumped too. I would not know which one to tell you. I mean, I like a lot of them. I mean, I could say specifically not my favorite type of horror movies is the gore. Like, okay, I don't know if you're a big fan of Terrifier, because I know a lot of people over the internet are, but I couldn't handle it. I was like, no, that's too much for my taste. Like, I can't with that. It was a good movie, the first part.
Yeah.
The second part killed it for me, but like those kind of gory movies, I get that they add that sort of fear that people are looking for, but no sir, I cannot.
So another thing, when we had spoke, I had actually, the one of the nights that we were talking, I was literally sitting on my bed messaging you, and I looked up and I could see a shadow person standing in my hallway, and you had said something about witches or something.
Okay, so yeah, you know how I told you, I think I told you online that I live like on the border of Texas and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, so literally next door is Mexico, but like because I am Hispanic, born, bred, everything, we have our own cultures down here compared to like other people who have their own definition. So the Hispanic culture kind of has this idea that a lot of bad things that happen to you, or if you happen to see shadows or apparitions or possibly demons, it's all tied back to someone doing something to you. Someone's, evil eyes, right? If you're familiar with that, it's
Yep.
someone doing this sort of like ill intent, evil eye on you. That it's someone who they're jealous of you for I don't know what you may have. They hate your guts for whatever reason. They go see a curandera. So that's basically like a female witch, or curandero, which is a male witch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll ask these sort of witches to be like, okay, hey, I don't like this person. I want something bad to happen to them. And so when you mention something about seeing black shadows, it's like, well, down here it means many things, but I don't know how your perception of seeing black shadows ties into your sort of mentality. You probably see it and you're like, oh, it's just a shadow, it's nothing. But for us down here, it would be like, hell, dude, take out that holy water, start saging the entire house, because those are not good to come across.
Well, so in my experiences, it's never been, it scared me, especially when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, I didn't know anything like to do about it. But I
Yeah.
would always see them, especially in my grandparents' basement. But I had stated on another podcast that we were on that my brother's bedroom was also in the basement, and that's where the video games were. So I had to go down there and play video games. So I had to see these shadow figures every time I went down. And yeah, they would stand up against like the lolly columns, for the basement that holds up the floor and stuff, like
Yeah.
kind of lean against it, or they'd be in a corner or something, but they never like did anything. And the ones that I see here, I rarely see them, but I do once in a while. And they just kind of stand there, and they like, if I walk towards it, it'll go away. But if I stay
Yeah.
where I am, or if I back away from it, it'll stay there. But I usually just like say, go away, I don't want you here, or something like that, and then they sometimes go away, sometimes not. So
Yeah, no, there's also that thing with us down here that you kind of need to scream at them out loud, like, hey, you're not allowed here. I don't want you in my home. And, on command, they will go away, but I don't know how it works in the spirit world if they end up coming back or not.
right. Heard I think it was today actually on another podcast they were talking about shadow people, and they were saying that they think that they might be like us, just in a different realm, and they think that they're seeing us the same way that we're seeing them.
Crazy that you bring that up, because as I had finished my second, like first half of the Halloween episode, the more I had looked into the church ideology, how it affected, like during the medieval times, like people's perception of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They have this whole thing about like heaven and hell and purgatory. Like, I don't know what your religion is, but like in the Catholic Church, it is like that, right? Like, so I have this belief that we are hand in hand with purgatory. We live in the physical realm, but the ghosts and the spirits we see is because we're actually right next door to those in purgatory. Like, because we're not dead yet, we can't really enter that sort of realm. But they have like this sort of like door to kind of still visit us in a way, but I don't know, there's still so much to like learn and understand with that. But that's my theory. I feel like we actually are side to side with those in purgatory.
Yeah. They say the I've heard people have said the same thing about like cryptids, like Sasquatch and stuff. Like it's like a parallel, kind of like what you were just saying with the purgatory, and every once in a while that's why you can see them every once in a great while. But I was curious if you believed in like Bigfoot at all.
I gotta say yes, actually. Yeah, because like I grew up with a lot of these sort of like shows that you would see on the Travel Channel and whatnot. Like, I'm pretty sure Ghost Adventures and whatnot. My favorite one, and I stopped watching it a few years ago, was Mountain Monsters. I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
I am not.
It's all these old men. They're all these ranchers and farmers, but they have their day job, and then they also have their night job that they kind of do like this investigating at night, of course. And they don't investigate within the city. They investigate like people's like ranches, because it's these other farmers. They call them. They're like, hey, something's mutilating my sheep, or I saw a Bigfoot. And like the video content that they show, it's kind of trippy and scary, that I'm like, I think I'm starting to believe in Bigfoot.
I think I do too. I haven't seen a Bigfoot, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'd get excited about it. Obviously, I'd still be scared, because who knows? Nobody knows the intention of a Bigfoot. But
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I find it interesting. So I was curious about. So I try to learn as much about other cultures and stuff, about like their paranormal entities or their lores, like surrounding cryptids and stuff. And I know with the Mexican culture, you have like the Day of the Dead, and what is fun, and I feel like it helps like children that may not be immersed in that culture, was the Disney movie Coco, which was, I feel like that movie was beautifully done. And so I don't know if it's a Mexican cryptid or if it's just a southern cryptid, but like the chupacabra, I guess they just recently found out that it was a real animal.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah. No,
heard that?
I think it came out like on TV a few years ago, that I think it was this lady, she had found something and she decided to kind of do like what's the name of that? What's the word that they kind of bring these dead animals to life, like but they don't actually bring them to life. Say that again?
Taxidermy.
Yeah, there you go, there
Yeah,
you go. And she did, I don't know if it's on a museum display or something. I'm like, that just looks like an ugly hairless looking dog. I mean,
It
I don't
does.
know, but yeah, down here where I live in the small hometown, my small hometown, I heard a few older uncles of mine, they would say the same thing like, oh, we see a creature down by the river. They can never describe what it is, but it would be something like yay big and just it's so ugly looking and whatnot. I think some people would refer it to the chupacabra, but my hometown doesn't have like it's a ranch town, but I don't live in like other spaces where it's like, oh, there's horses and sheep and cattle and whatnot. So of course it's not something I would ever come across, but it is something that it is an often term said down here. Like if something were to happen to someone's like animals in the ranch or in the farms down here, yes, like everyone wants to tie it down to the chupacabra, but I mean, I'm not too sure. Like, that's part of my
Yeah.
growing up, and even at that, I'm kind of like, I don't know to really give in the belief of that or not.
Um, so do you still sleepwalk now?
No, no,
No,
I don't.
no. So
Thank God. But
how
no.
how long did you go with before you were able to put a stop to that?
My mom said that it lasted 1 year.
One year?
It came suddenly and then it just stopped on its own. My mom tells me that there was nothing she did differently. She just kind of let me, I guess, play it out, and
Yeah.
then it just stopped. But she tells me within that time period, I used to also wake up in the middle of the night, wake her up from her sleep and be like, Mom, they're not letting me sleep, they're not letting me sleep. And she would always ask me like, well, who's there? And I maybe I was just too young,
Yeah.
or there's that whole infantile amnesia term, but like I don't remember. I'm gonna be quite honest. I don't know what the hell I experienced at that time. I remember a few, but not everything.
Do you do you think that maybe you might have like a medium ability, like, and as you got older it kind of like diminished and maybe you just don't remember that part when you were younger, so like you may have had spirits around you and that you're like, just stop talking, and you'd be like, yeah, if you don't stop talking I'm gonna go tell my mom.
I think that those experiences actually stopped sometime in my mid 20s. Once I got closer to getting 30, it kind of stopped. The thing that has not gone away is my nightmares. Is that like, I don't know, I looked it up one time and apparently there's a thing called nightmare syndrome, and I'm like, is that what I'm suffering from? Like it does affect my sleep a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, this home where I'm at right now with my husband, like the first 3 nights when we first moved in, it was one nightmare after another, and like it wouldn't go away. So I started like doing my own cleansing and whatnot, and then it did go away. But there's a pattern to my sleep that I tend to go a good while with nightmares, and then I'll stop with the nightmares, and then it comes back. So the whole thing with the spirits, like I said, I stopped seeing them in my 20s. The only thing that has not gone away is just my problem with my sleep.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
So do you like end up waking up in the middle of the night in like a cold sweat and like hyperventilating, or is it just like kind of
I think
scares you
only
to?
I think only one time I had that little bit of a sweat problem, and I don't even remember what the dream was about. But when the nightmares get really intense, yes, I do wake up with my heart like wanting to come out of my chest, and it hurts. Like it physically hurts for how scared I get during
Yeah,
during these nightmares in my sleep.
that's crazy. I don't think I've experienced a nightmare like that in forever. I did a couple times when I was a kid. I saw a lot of stuff when I was young. My sister actually freaked out at a black mass in my grandparents' house. Tanya, you want to tell her about that?
Yeah, so we were getting ready for school in the morning, and Kevin and I were in the kitchen waiting for my mom, and I just saw like in the entryway from like the kitchen to the living room like this black mass, and it scared the crap out of me. It kind of came out of nowhere, so it scared me. So I screamed and I ran, and then Kevin screamed and ran after me. And my mom, she didn't understand what was going on, so she got upset with us for being so loud in the morning and whatever. And I told her what I saw, and Kevin was like, "Yeah, I didn't see it, but she screamed and ran, so I screamed and ran too." So Kevin, I think, would survive a horror film because that's how you do it.
Yeah.
You don't question it. You see somebody screaming and running, you just go.
Yeah. That's exactly how you do it. You don't investigate because that's how you die in every movie.
Pretty much.
So do you, when you have these nightmares, do you, when you wake up and your husband's right there, does he wake up too, or do you wake him up?
No, actually, like he's so knocked out. Like I don't think he even feels me kind of like panicking like in the
Man,
bed.
I wish I could sleep like that.
No, he's a good sleeper, but like I think the only thing at this point that wakes me up in the middle of the night is my dogs. So if that helps disrupt my dreams, I'm fine with that. I'm gonna keep my dog next to me.
So, what do you experience in your nightmares? Or can you remember them, or?
Yeah, so from elementary all the way to high school, I always had these dreams about like these monsters, and I think my earliest form, I guess my first nightmare, it was a Disney cartoon. Okay, so I'm a bit embarrassed to admit that, but like Snow White was literally getting her head eaten off by what are those, one of those characters from Mulan. It was those big guys, whatever. Like I don't know. That's my first nightmare.
Like the bad
And then
guys,
going into yeah, the Huns. I
the
think
hunt,
that's what.
yeah.
Yeah. And then in high school, I started dreaming about these sort of like mythical gods, I guess. One in particular had like 50 heads on him.
Wow.
And I actually searched that up one time. There is a Greek god that actually, or monster, it does have that. I don't remember the name at this point. And then once I got to my 20s, I started dreaming about murder and rape, and
Ugh.
there was another one. Yeah, they got pretty serious. That I always dreamt something in relation to death in my 20s.
Like it happening to you, or you witnessing it happen to someone?
Both ways.
Ugh.
Yeah. It wasn't like just to me. And and like in my 20s, I kind of figured like, okay, you know what? Maybe there's someone here in my room and they're trying to say something to me. Like what are they saying? But like the majority of the dreams were the same. It was murder, it was rape. There was a stalker, and actually there was this one guy that I kept dreaming of. I think like for 4 nightmares straight. It was the same guy, but he would disguise himself as a police officer or a teacher or just a regular somebody like in the middle of the street, you know. But it was the same face, and I never saw his face again after that.
Huh. That's crazy. Wow. That's terrible to experience, though. Does it feel real?
Yes, dude, it feels like I'm there discovering the bodies myself. Yeah, it's a bit creepy. It's a bit scary. That's what I'm saying. Like I would wake up with my heart physically hurting my chest, like 'cause
Yeah.
it would like what the hell? Like how many times in a day do you experience a dead body? You know?
Right. Oh man, I'm sorry that you have to go through that.
Yeah, that's fine. It's like,
Right. Do you have you experienced anything negative other than the nightmares with any entities or anything like that?
Wait, say that again. What do you mean? Like if I have dreamed of like these dark spirits entering my dreams or something?
No, like if like have you seen or experienced an entity in your waking time
Oh, okay,
that
yes,
is
of course.
negative, or is the nightmares the most negative thing?
Okay, so I'll say this. I was in 9th grade. I was on the phone with a friend, and the service inside my house was a bit like sketchy. scratchy. So I had to go outside. And this was like, I think around 8, 9 at night. So I would just be there with my friend. We're talking about boys, right? Of course, it's a girl thing. And my aunt had this car that she bought from another family member of ours. And given that the yard is so dark, my mom had like 3 dogs at that time. And they just kept barking at this one car. And like I didn't give in to the thought of it at first until it was so continuous that finally I looked and I saw, given that it's dark, but when you see these sort of like demons or entities that they lack a color, they happen to be darker than night itself. So okay, I was able to make out the image that on the car seat, the front car seat with the steering wheel, there was this creature looking at me that it did had horns like coming out of its head, just staring back at me. And I screamed. I hung up the phone with my friend. Like, forget that phone call. I ran back inside and I told my mom, and my mom and my aunt, they went out there, they went to go investigate to see, but nothing happened. So that was one experience. No, no, no. I'm gonna leave it at that for right now. A year later, my dad passed away around that same time I had saw that spirit. So I don't like now as an adult, I think about it and I'm like, I think that was supposed to be like the sort of sign that something bad was gonna happen.
Mm.
It was not gonna happen that day of. It was just this foreseeable thing that was something was gonna happen in the future.
Oh
I don't know
wow.
if you ever had something like that you see like this black shadow and then like 3 weeks later you're like, oh shit, like I did not see that coming. And that black shadow was this sort of like warning for you. You know what I mean?
Right. I haven't. I at least not that I am aware of
Yeah.
it happening. I do. I mean, I've seen like obviously I've seen the shadow people, but that's like the only real like dark figures that I've seen. I did see a see-through entity. I've talked about it on a few episodes now, but I'll tell you. He was a faceless apparition. He sat next to me on my swing set at my grandparents' house, and he either had noodles, a bowl of noodles, or he was knitting something. But whatever he had, it was stringy like yarn or noodles. And I couldn't see his face. And I looked up at him and I could see right through him. And he goes, "Be patient." And I was like, "About what?" He goes, "You'll know. You'll you'll know." And then I just like looked down at the ground and I was like, "What the fuck?" And it felt like I was looking at the ground forever, but it was probably only like 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden he was gone. So
That's a bit creepy.
yeah,
That's very creepy.
I was 9, and it was so I had tried to take my own life at 9, and it happened probably a couple weeks after that.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's something right there.
So I
And you never saw that figure again, like with the noodle or the string. No, never
no,
again.
never again. That
Do
was the
you
only
give
time.
into the thought that it may have been like a guardian angel or something communicating with you?
I kind of. So like, for most of my life, I was, I kind of like put it in the back of my mind after a few years, but like after it happened, I thought about it every day. I'm like, what am I supposed to be patient about? What the hell am I supposed to be patient about? And like, it didn't even really dawn on me to be like anything like as a savior or anything. And then I tried a second time when I was 13. And then after that, I just became like dull and angry for like the rest of like my high school years. I was always mad about something, and it just like I never thought about it again. And then once I started listening to podcasts about all these people's experiences and stuff, and then I started remembering my experiences, and then I was like, oh yeah. And then I remember when I was 30, I was living in my mother's basement, and I felt like a piece of shit. I felt like my life was going nowhere. I'm like, really? I'm fucking 30, living in my mother's basement, no heat in the middle of winter in the basement. It's freezing. My kids had to sleep in their beds in the basement, and I was just like, what the fuck am I doing with myself? And then I thought about that time, and I was just like, I wonder if he's just like, it was meant like as like a life mantra. We like, be patient with everything, and everything will fall in line. Like, don't get so caught up in life that you are trying to rush to your end goal constantly. And so I just started kind of just letting go of what I couldn't control. And 4 years later, I have a 3-bedroom house, and my kids and I started taking vacations, and it's been it's this year alone has been extremely good. I started like this spiritual journey, and just I'm learning new things constantly. I started this podcast last April. It was I only did a couple interviews at first, and then in October I just started back to back talking to people, and it's just and everybody on the Instagram and stuff is everybody's so friendly and so nice, and I love everybody, and it's been such a good experience with this podcast alone and everybody that I've come across. So I
Pretty
feel like,
amazing.
yeah, I feel like it was meant to be positive. So, but at the time when I had experienced it, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you were younger when you said that you were having these sort of like negative life experiences, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we never have anything figured out at that sort of age until finally you get older, you go through your own stages of life, and everything starts to click, make sense. I get it. I get it.
Right.
Like, I think everyone goes through their phase of depression, I guess. But it's through those low points that's where we find ourselves and we grow from it.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
agree. I
Yeah.
100% agree. So going back to like you said that you live in a small ranch town. So I was curious if you have ever seen a UFO.
Okay, so actually, was it 2021 or 2022? I think it was 2021. My cousin and my sister both graduated from TAMU, and so my sister was like, "No, I'm not gonna have a dinner or anything. I'm just gonna go about my day." My cousin, out of town, which is only like 50 miles away from where I lived, was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna have a get together here at the bar. You want to come? Cool, let's get together." Badass. So my husband and I, we go, we hang out, we had a few beers, and I think it was already like 2 in the morning. Typical timing when all the clubs and bars like close down, right? So we're like, okay, let's go home. I'm falling asleep. I'm tired. And like somewhere along the way on the drive, because we were in my car,
Yeah.
I tell my husband, like, you know what? I'm super sleepy. I can't hold it. Like, can you take over? Sure. Okay. So, and my sister's also with us. I forgot to mention that part. Like, we took her with us.
Yeah.
And while he's driving, we go to my sister's house to drop her off. But not, it wasn't such a far horizon, but like so close, or hovering over like the Mexican border, we see like this orange orb, actually. This thing, it was floating, and then it would stop and then kind of reverse back, and then it would just go forward, and then like it was kind of cloudy too, so you couldn't really tell much. You just see like this orange light. And the first one that actually saw it was my husband. He was like, "Babe, oh my God, do you see that?" And I'm there like all angry, like, because I wanted to sleep. But like I saw it too, and I was like, "Wait, what the heck?" And like someone actually recorded it and put it on Facebook, the Laredo Paranormal Society. I forgot the rest of the title. It's such a long name.
Yeah.
But I looked for it the other day, and I was like, "Damn it, this isn't as clear I was hoping it would be." But like someone, like, there were a lot of people that experienced the same thing too. They saw that orb. Some people claim like, "Oh no, it's just one of those planes that they can stop in the middle of the air, whatever." But
I've never heard of a plane like that.
Same here. I was like, okay, whatever floats your boat. But like, it was such a beautiful, perfect circle too, dude. Like if you were to have seen it, you would have been like, what the fuck? Like, oh my god, like it was just but it looked like an orb, like
Yeah.
of all things. Like it was like this floating glow, just kind of like going back and forth, up and down, and then it disappeared. You didn't see it go shoot nowhere in the sky. It just all of a sudden the light just stopped glowing and it disappeared. And that was it. We never saw it
Wow.
again after that.
Wow. That is crazy. And one thing that makes it even more crazier, the episode that I just aired yesterday with Shane, UFO Bigfoot. I don't know. I know that
I've
you
been meaning to listen to that episode. I barely got to hear your other podcast with 305 Paranormal, Mystic Talk, and Engineer of the Soul. I like that episode. I was like,
you
legit, this
let
needs to go out more.
thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yes.
Uh yeah, he experienced orange orbs in
That's
North
crazy.
Carolina. So when the minute you said orange orb, I was like, "What? No way!" I literally just
God.
posted this episode yesterday, and he saw 12. He saw 12, and he had like this like euphoric feeling of just like beautiful energy, positive, and he just like he pulled over, got out of his car, and was just like, "Wow!" And then they just like went in a like a single file line and just left.
That is trippy. Okay, no, I've never had that sort of experience, but just seeing that orange glow, and it was only one, just one little bulb, I guess, just floating in midair. But yes, it
Wow.
was trippy. Like we didn't even think about getting our phones. We were just like, what? Like we were just seeing it going back and forth and whatnot.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool though. It's good that it wasn't like a negative thing. A lot of people end up having some like negativity negative experience when it comes to
Yeah.
something unexplainable in the sky, like abductions and stuff. So some people actually are like, yeah, I was abducted and it was awesome and it was amazing, and I'm like, okay. But I mean, that's their experience. Not everybody's going to
Yeah,
experience the same thing. So
of
um
course.
and you said that was 2021?
2021. Yeah, this happened in early May or the second week of May, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think I've ever seen. Sometimes I'll look up at the sky at night just to try to see if I see anything weird, but it's usually just stars. So it's always
I was
this.
about to ask if you had any UFO experiences yourself
No,
or
I
nothing. No?
personally haven't. I don't know if my sister has because she hasn't talked about it, but I've told my sister most of the stuff that I experienced, especially when we were kids. I don't think I ever told her about the faceless guy though, but just because that scared the shit out of me, I didn't even want to talk about it. But Tanya, you ever see a UFO?
There was one time, but it could have also possibly have been a dream. But it was when we were really young, when we were living with Grandma and Gramp, and or it also, I guess, could have been an airplane because we did live right next to the airport. But it was just weird because it's like there was just an aircraft that came like right over the house, which we did not live close enough to the airport that an airplane should be right over our house.
Yeah.
But again, that could have been a dream, so I've never really put much thought into that, but it's the closest I've come.
Yeah. And this airport is like small aircrafts. It's not like commercial airlines and stuff. These are
Right.
just like single person airplanes and small
Okay.
jets.
Yeah.
So, and helicopters.
Of course.
Sometimes I disliked the helicopters because they would fly so low around that area. And it was like a whole lot of woods. So I used to find like um weird uh footprints in like or tracks in the snow all the time. Every winter.
Like a Bigfoot type of footprint or no,
No,
just
No,
Something
it
you
was
wouldn't recognize.
yeah, and they were like sometimes. So I think there was one time where I think it was squirrels, but I pretended like it was an alien and I just like followed it.
Okay, I see. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was kind of cool. But I did see like tracks that like were more explainable, that were like weird. I remember thinking like I don't know what would have made that, but I can't like remember what they looked like. But I remember the experience. I do actually remember one time um I was following so all right, I haven't talked about this on this podcast. We talked about it when we were on Let's Get Freaky with Tommy Cullum. But me and my sister were walking in the woods. We were following these weird tracks. It was just like this very like light sheet of snow. And it was still fairly warm out, but it was just enough snow that you could see tracks, and we were following these weird tracks. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like I walked through a portal. Like all of a sudden, the woods were different, and it was like this little mushroom village of mushroom people.
That's pretty trippy. Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
and they just like they looked exactly like mushrooms. There was no like face or anything like that. They didn't look like people that happened to have like a mushroom head or anything. They were mushrooms, and they were walking around this village. And I had
You weren't
glasses.
high or anything, were you?
Well, I was maybe I could have been. I so this I did um regression therapy. That's how I remember this. I remembered following the tracks, and then I remembered my glasses falling off. So but when I did regression, and I remembered some things that I didn't want to remember, but I needed to remember to heal from them that happened to me. But this is one of the things that came out of it. And I know like with regression therapy, sometimes you get false memories, or it's said that you can get false memories. So, but this feels real to me, but I am concerned that maybe it didn't happen, but it feels really, really extremely real. And
I can imagine.
yeah. And so I remember they all like stopped and looked at me, and they were probably about not much bigger than a water bottle, probably maybe half the size of a 16-ounce water bottle. And I felt like this like bump on the back of my head, and my head goes forward, and my glasses fall off my face, and then I turned my head, and this mushroom was on my shoulder, and then it was almost like it spoke to me telepathically, because it doesn't have a face, doesn't have a fucking mouth. And it's like, you didn't need those. And I was like, and I just stared at it. I didn't know what to do. And then as I'm staring at it on my shoulder, it was like a switch like that. And my sister's standing there, and I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me. And then I go, I lost my glasses. And she goes, where are they? And then she stepped on my glasses and
Oh,
broke them. And then I never wore glasses again.
that is trippy on so many levels, but that's crazy, honestly.
Yeah.
Like to have this thing tell you like, nah, you never needed glasses, and lo and behold, you don't need those glasses.
Yeah, it was as so when I told Tommy about it, I said that maybe I was falsely like told that I need glasses, but at the same time, it would almost be like kind of like a miracle kind of thing, you know what I mean? Because mushrooms, when you eat mushrooms, they're good for your brain cells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I would assume that it would be good. Eating mushrooms would be good for your eyesight,
Hmm. That
maybe.
well, I mean, it could be true. I mean, we do tie a lot things to the health of our body and whatnot. So that's pretty interesting, actually. I mean, I've heard of regression therapy. I've never heard of it in terms of like, oh, you can have like these sort of false memories or these sort of dreams or something like that. So I'm gonna look into that and see if maybe in the future I can make like an episode out of it. Like,
Yeah.
hey, look at this.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. I've heard people say that sometimes that it would give you a memory. You could get a memory out of it that actually didn't happen. It was what it said, but I've only heard that. I haven't actually like seen like clinical like articles or anything about the memories that you get from it being false, but I've heard it on a couple of podcasts because a lot of people have a hard time remembering like abductions and stuff, and then they're like, well, have you ever thought about regression therapy? And they're like, oh no, because there's things that I might not want to remember, and then the trauma can revisit, and then I've also heard that you get the false memories and maybe something that didn't happen, so then I'll have trauma about something that didn't even happen. And I was like, and because I did the regression therapy, obviously, and I was just like, really? Could that have been like when I heard the first time I heard that regression therapy could give you a false memory? I was like, oh no, maybe that's not real.
You're like, I wanted this to be real. How dare you? Oh.
So,
but like, did you ever get to find like the sort of significance to it? Like, okay, you had this thing with the mushrooms. Did you ever go online to be like, okay, what is the meaning of like this talking food, like communicating with you about something? No, nothing like that.
No, I haven't. When I did it, I actually ended up starting to eat mushrooms more.
Interesting. That's pretty interesting.
Because I already most of my childhood, I didn't like mushrooms, and I wonder if I had that in the back of my mind because of that experience, and I was just like, oh, I don't want to touch mushrooms. You know what I mean? I didn't start really like liking mushrooms until I got super into fitness in around 2013.
Okay.
And so I started going to the gym, trying to eat better and stuff. So I'm constantly looking into foods and stuff, and mushrooms came up as like a very healthy, good. It's good for your brain, helps you with cognitive dissonance, and helps you regenerate your brain cells, so it helps you with memory and stuff like that. So I started implementing it more into my diet, and I actually just bought mud water. I don't know if you heard about mud water. So it's a coffee replacement, and it's just ground up mushrooms, and it's mixed with cocoa and cinnamon, so like you have like a good taste. But they say that people who've tried it on the reviews, they're like, make sure you like put some kind of like milk or something or creamer into it because it's not like phenomenal tasting, but you still get that like cinnamon and cocoa with it. But if you mix it with like milk or like almond milk or something, it'll taste a lot better. So
I can imagine. So just the title itself sounds kind of like not that appealing. Mud water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna go back to childhood here.
Yeah, it looks like a protein powder or like coffee grinds, basically.
Okay.
So it's supposed to support like a healthy energy rather than like giving you that caffeine high.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna try it. And then the company reached out to me and asked me to make after I try it to make a reel, and that I could make money off of posting it onto my Instagram and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'll do the reel. I don't even care about the money. But I was like, I'll help. I was like, I actually emailed them. I was like, I actually have a podcast. I was like, once I try it, if I like it, if you guys are interested, I can like put an ad on my podcast for it. But they haven't answered. So
they're a growing busy company, so yeah. But I'm pretty sure you'll hear from them soon enough.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they won't deny you either. They're gonna be like, hell yeah, dude, anything to get the word out there.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I'm gonna try it, but I think the fact that I didn't need glasses after this experience was really weird. And
yeah, that's why I said earlier, that's tripping in a lot of levels, but that's very interesting actually.
Yeah. There's another question that I was actually curious. Have you, mainly because of your nightmares, have you ever like astral projected at all, or
I want to say one dream did stick out one time. This only happened one time. I think I was in high school. I had this dream that I was kind of like, okay, you know how in movies they kind of do this thing that when you're going from one place to another and it's like this sort of swirl of all these colors, and at the end of it there's like that white light.
yeah,
Okay,
yes.
so that was kind of the layout of my dream. I was going through this sort of like in time with these colors going around, and stars, like they were the most beautiful stars I've ever seen. I mean, we can only see so far on what in our sky, right? But like there was a tablet. It was a wooden tablet that came in front of me all of a sudden, and it had like the weirdest inscription I have ever seen. And I don't think I've ever come across on the internet anything that comes close to this sort of symbols. I don't know what it meant. I didn't even try reading it. I think I just saw like these sort of faces of animals in it, along with these sort of, sharp lines. Like I said, I don't know what was the meaning of that. I think I tried going over the internet to see what was what was that supposed to mean, but I didn't really find much on it. So I think it was just like just a random dream, but I want to say it was kind of like an astral projection kind of thing, because like I said, it was the swirl of colors that kind of just like gave it away, and I've never had another dream like that ever again. So I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Tanya, you have any questions for Vicky?
Sure. Since we talked about our podcast.
Yep.
So I guess like how do you decide like what do you want to talk about on your podcast, and then like what is the process that goes into like planning the episode out?
I think for me, what started off was just like talking about the whole Halloween thing. I think it's kind of like a starter point. Well, for me, I found it like a starter point. But then I found that there's just so much that goes into it. And there's like this whole lengthy explanation for each and every one of these variety of things that goes into the holiday, that I'm kind of planning out on the rest of my episode to do a better definition or description of these things. So I just want to finish off like this second half of like this whole history of Halloween thing, and then from there just kind of somewhat go back to the beginning, but talk about like these things in a separate term to kind of help like lay out my podcast a little bit longer, because I don't want to just all of a sudden like stop talking about it. And then someone had contacted me 2 weeks ago. I forgot, it was a political account, but like it's just people doing their own podcast, and they were like, oh, but they want to talk about their spooky scary experiences for me to interview them. And I'm like, well, I don't have like this badass like technological resources, but when I do, I mean, you're definitely there. And I want to say that I want to do that as like a second season, interview people about like their experiences and how did it affect their worldview growing up, and does it still to this day, or that they kind of like just put it to the side and just be like, well, I'm just obsessed with this sort of thing instead of that, or I want to be able to look at it at a more societal cultural perspective, rather than just focusing on just like this spooky experience and that's it. I want to see like how was it a negative experience for them, and okay, if it was, what was their perception of life afterwards, or if it was positive, how did it help them change themselves for the better? You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Yeah.
That would be a phenomenal for a season 2, I think, for you.
Yeah, definitely.
This has been a lot of kind of sort of the same thing. I like to have conversation on top of listening to people's stories. So like just getting to know the guest at the same time as listening to, their stories. Because a lot of people, like, I don't want to sit here and just be like, all right, tell me your scary shit, and
Yeah.
then just sit here and listen to them and just be like, oh, what else, or what else you got, or something like that. So I like the conversational aspect of it. So I think that would be really cool. And you seem to have like this, like a really well, like, conversationalist within you. So I think that would work out really well for you.
Cool, cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I want to look at things from like an academic point of view. I think it stayed with me for those 5 years I was a teacher aide, and like that
Mm,
sort of education, that teacher, I guess. I mean, I wasn't exactly a teacher, but working in it, it didn't exactly leave me. So doing this, I was like, I kind of want to do that. Like, what's the basis of all this, and how do we benefit from it? And how can we actually educate ourselves onto
mm.
this? So, yeah.
Right. That's a really good perspective on that. Um, I was also curious. Have you ever delved into any, like, rabbit holes for, like, conspiracy wise?
Conspiracy wise, like, no, I mean, there's certain subjects that I do want to stay out of,
Mm,
mainly due to like a fear of, like, okay, for me, down the rabbit hole that I don't want to get into is this whole thing about like Satanism and worshiping. Okay, so that's like, I have this fear that if the more I think about it, the more bad I'm gonna bring into my life, or I'm gonna see the devil myself in the corner of my room or something.
that
and
makes sense.
yeah, and that's like my main thing that I don't want to get into. For everything else, I don't know. I guess I have not given too much of a deeper thought depending on the subject. And if it crosses a certain line, I'm like, okay, I'm done,
Yeah.
because like it's just not gonna leave my head. I'm gonna have another damn nightmare about this tonight, and I want my fucking sleep, please. Like, leave me alone. Let's not get there.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I understand that.
Yeah.
I do dives all the time, and that's another aspect of this podcast. Like that episode with 305 paranormal and mystic talk. Bobby Shu, he had some amazing things. I actually got some feedback for that episode, and people really liked him and the things that he had to say, and it really resonated with a couple people. So I ended up messaging him to let him know that um people liked him. So
That's
he
badass. That's
yeah.
great.
So um so there's another podcast that I listen to called The Conversation Cabin.
Oh, with
And
Sarah, yeah, she's
yeah,
pretty great. I really like her.
yeah.
We're actually working on a project together, a secret project. Don't say anything. I'm
Oh,
already.
okay. Well, she stated it at the end of her last episode, so that's why I was bringing her up, because I wanted to see to ask you about it. But if it's a little hush hush, then we won't get into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the works as of right now. We're supposed to meet up tomorrow, but sadly, tomorrow's going to be a very busy day for me. That I told the girls, like, because it's not just only me and her; it's like two other girls.
Mm-hmm.
I told them that for tomorrow, I was not going to meet up with them, but we did have this thing planned out that every Friday we're going to meet and collaborate on like ideas and the information. So hopefully next Friday they'll fill me in on what they found and whatnot. But yeah, I'll give just a little hint. It's about one of them is gonna be about UFOs.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. I love UFO stories.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Farah's a really good storyteller. I
Oh yeah,
enjoy
she is.
listening to her podcast as well.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna end up reaching out to her. I have a few people on, but I know in her like introduction, she talked about investing, like doing a paranormal investigation in this cave behind her
Yeah.
house, or something. I think it's behind her house.
Yeah. She says it's like her backyard basically.
Yeah, I want to have her come on and tell her experience with that. So
Yeah.
I'm eventually going to ask her about that. So we shall see if she wants to. But anyways, Tanya, you have any more questions? Are you all set?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, fine then. All right, Vicky, you want to tell the good people, the maybe 2 or 3 people that listen to this, where they can find you and your podcast?
I mean, my podcast is the same as my Instagram at Mrs. Spooky Obsessed, like MRS and then Spooky Obsessed. If you know how to spell the rest of that, great. I just only have to describe the Mrs. part because I know a lot of people do misspell that keyword in particular. But yes, my Instagram is the same as my podcast on Spotify, and I'm trying to reach to other places like Amazon Music, like I have it there. iHeartRadio, it's also there. I'm trying to work on Apple Podcasts, but it's been a little difficult with me right now. But for the most part, my handle is the same all throughout, Mrs. Spooky Obsessed. So if you're interested in the podcast, great. I also have like some images on my Instagram. It's mostly cartoony-ish. Like I hope people don't mind. I know people prefer to see like this sort of like realistic image, but the majority of my content is just kind of like a cartoon art based images mostly. So I mean, give it a thumbs up or listen to something. I don't know.
All right, guys, that's the show. You know where to find me, but I'll tell you again. If you want to come on and talk about anything weird and spooky or whatever your experiences, tell your stories, please reach out to me at wheretheweirdonesare@gmail.com. You can also get my Instagram, where_the_weird_ones_are. And if you go to my Instagram, you can definitely find Vicky at Mrs. Spooky Obsessed, because I follow her and I enjoy her podcast as well, which I listen to on Spotify. So with that being said, everybody stay.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, cast your eyes to the summer sky. When the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day, make a wish.